Good evening, and thank you for joining our last live spring parent session for this year, titled Spring into Action with Handwriting Building Blocks. My name is Audrey Jones Langston, and I'm a member of the Family and Community Connections team in Special Education Services. Joining me tonight from the Family and Community Connections team is Annie Bush, who is supporting technology, and Linda Jenkins, who will wrap up our presentation this evening. We are happy to have you with us tonight. Sue Wanamaker, our lead occupational therapist, will present this evening. We'd like to give a special thank you to Jill McKenna, our assistant superintendent, for allowing us to share this information with you this evening. We are so excited to get started with the presentation, but before we get started, let's review a few housekeeping tips. As a reminder, please mute your mics and turn your cameras off. This will help to eliminate any background noise and limit distractions for all participants. The chat feature will be closed during the presentation. However, many of you submitted questions during registration. Our hope is your question or your questions will be answered during this presentation. If not, please contact the Family and Community Connections team. Our information can be found on the website under Special Education Services. More contact information will be provided at the end of this presentation. The Family and Community Connections team is the part of Special Education Services that provides a variety of support for families, including parent training and resource materials. We also participate in community events and partner with families, schools, and community agencies to serve and advocate for students with disabilities. Take a brief moment to read our mission statement that's located on the slide. The goal and focus of our team is to inform, empower, and facilitate. We support families and schools by providing information to help build relationships so that all members of the IEP team have the knowledge and skills to work together. This allows for creating the best outcomes for students with disabilities. Now we'll start with our presentation, and here's Sue Wanamaker. We might be having a little technology issue, so just hold on just a moment, and Sue will be right with us.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sue Wanamaker, and I am the lead OT for Wake County Public Schools. You would think that as we are in virtual for so long, you would remember to unmute your mic. Clearly, I forgot. Thank you very much. During our time together, I will be reviewing how school-based OTs support the foundational skills of handwriting that support your child's participation in writing activities. The developmental progression of handwriting skills as a process of learning the skills of handwriting are twofold in elementary school. General information and resources related to the foundation of handwriting. But before we continue, if you have a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen near you, try to write your first and last name with your non-dominant hand. I'll give you a second. So as you're writing, did you find that you had to pay more attention to how your fingers were moving and the thought for how you were forming your letters, and almost even remembering what letters you were writing? So keep that in mind as we go through these next slides. So what is occupational therapy? Occupational therapy practitioners have a holistic perspective while facilitating a person's engagement in meaningful everyday activities that bring purpose to an individual's life. We work with people across the lifespan and in many different settings. For children, services can occur in the home, in the clinic, and in schools. School-based occupational therapy services. School-based or educational occupational therapy services are related services and support a student's ability to participate in their education. School-based occupational therapy services are provided by a licensed OT and focus on supporting a student's participate in daily school activities or occupations such as academics, play, leisure, school participation, self-care, and transitions or work skills. One of the primary occupations So why are we talking about writing? Writing is an intentional task as a student is developing the underlying skills. The goal is for a student to establish automaticity while writing. That way, the student is able to attend to the content versus the letter formation and writing mechanics. In the beginning stages of writing, a student is focused on paying attention to the writing task, following the writing rules and spelling, remembering what she and he wants to write, letter formations, how to hold a pencil, where to write, and more. This is a lot to focus on one time. In the beginning stages of writing, learning how to draw or form pre-writing strokes and writing letters or numbers, sensory perception plays a significant role on how a child moves the writing utensil. OTs possess a unique set of skills when examining a student's ability to learn to write. We can examine the environment, adapt the task, evaluate the breakdowns in performance that may include motor skills, visual motor skills, visual perceptual skills, and self-regulation aspects of writing. We can remediate specific skills, provide adaptations for the student, train educators, and provide input into programs and supports as students are learning the skill of handwriting. There are many skills a child learns and acquires that mark the start of the journey of learning how to write and writing to learn. Learning how to write is a developmental and multi-system process. Before a student is ready to pick up a crayon or a pencil to write, there are many foundation skills that students need to be successful learning how to write. These foundational developmental skills are acquired within a typical development, within a range of typical development. Some students acquire the skills sooner, and some may acquire the skills a little later. Learning how to write is a developmental and multi-system process. In this section, we will review the underlying or foundation skills that support a student's ability to progress towards the skills of handwriting. Self-regulation. Self-regulation allows for engagement in learning activities and provides the foundation for students' ability to learn. School readiness research now includes many interrelated components on a child's development and begins with self-regulation. Self-regulation allows a student to be able to attend, recall, think, organize, maintain attention, emotional regulation, and a stress response to the physiology, or also called interoception. If a student is not regulated, his or her ability to learn the complex process of writing, then their handwriting will be adversely affected. In addition, a student's understanding of writing and the purpose of writing is important. For example, does the student recognize his or her name, the upper or lowercase letters of the alphabet, or the numbers? The next foundational skill is sensation. Sensation is the feedback our body receives while we are engaged in movement. The body's ability to detect touch is called tactile, joint position, proprioception, awareness in movement is called kinesthesia. All allow for a child's movements to become more precise, allow for correction, and for the movements to become more automatic. Sensory perception guides movement and motor execution. It plays an important role in learning to write. Another foundational skill for handwriting is postural control, which is also highly correlated with body awareness. Postural control refers to the way our body regulates sensory information in order to maintain a controlled upright posture. Development of motor stability is proximal, or near the body or trunk, to distal, the arms and the hands. This starts in infants as they have tummy time. You may have seen the progression of tummy time when your child begins with a wobbly head, and then he or she can hold their head at midline to look straight ahead. And eventually they can look around while propped on elbows. As the child gets older, proximal stability or postural control is used to sit on the floor and play or sit at a table to complete fine motor tasks. Postural control in school. Take a moment to think about all of the activities a student is expected to participate in at school that requires postural control, such as sitting on the floor during morning meeting, sitting at a desk, and standing in line. These are just a few examples of tasks that require postural control. Why is postural control important for students? The common lingo you may hear an occupational therapist say is proximal stability equals distal control. This means that if a student has solid trunk stability, he or she will be able to use his arms and hands more effectively. OTs can provide strategies and other supports to facilitate a student's postural control and enhance stability in shoulders, forearms, and hands. All of these photos are different examples of proximal stability equals distal control. Body awareness. Body awareness is the ability to understand where our bodies are in space and how our bodies move. Your child's exploration allows for ongoing opportunities to move his or her body. Think about a time when your child had a growth spurt and the period of relearning a motor task. For example, when they're walking, they may start tripping over their feet until they get used to the size of their feet. Body awareness is also critical for learning midline and bilateral control, which we will talk about next. Crossing midline refers to the ability to spontaneously cross over the midline of the body during motor completion or functional tasks. Midline matters because it significantly impacts the way we organize our bodies. Let's take a look at our friend. And what do you see? The child is sitting at a desk, writing with his non-dominant hand and securing the paper with his non-dominant hand. These skills are require the left and right hemispheres of the brain to be integrated and coordinated. This process begins with finding the middle of our bodies. Think about different writing tasks your child is required to complete. Visually scanning the board in the front of the room, reaching for commonly shared classroom materials at the center of the table, reading a large book, and visually scanning from left to right. These are examples where you may cross the midline of your body, or midline. Crossing midline is an integral skill related to bilateral coordination. Bilateral coordination refers to the ability to coordinate both sides of the body at the same time in a controlled and organized manner. For example, stabilizing the paper with one hand while writing or cutting with scissors in the other. Good bilateral coordination is an indicator that both sides of the brain are communicating effectively and sharing information. Bilateral coordination includes fine and gross motor tasks. As you can see, we have bike riding, using scissors, and handwriting. Children who have difficulty coordinating both sides of their body can have difficulty completing daily living tasks such as dressing or tying their shoes. Fine motor activities such as banging blocks together, stringing beads, buttoning. Visual motor tasks such as drawing, writing, cutting, catching and throwing, and gross motor tasks such as crawling, walking, climbing the stairs, and riding a bike. Hand preference. Hand preference is typically intact by 3 to 4 years old. Neurologically, a child may not be set until approximately 8 years old. Children entering preschool and kindergarten may not have a strongly established hand preference or a hand dominance. Hand dominance is required to begin developing the other supporting motor skills and planning, such as using the worker hand and a helper hand for effective classroom tool use. There are some children who come into kindergarten still establishing hand dominance, and we often allow that child to continue to use both hands so he or she can independently develop that specialization. As a child establishes hand dominance, the hemispheres of the brain that control the hand begin to become much more specialized or lateralized for precise hand movements. Interestingly, a child who avoids midline crossing can have difficulty coordinating both sides of their body and oftentimes has difficulty establishing hand dominance, and they tend to use alternating hands when coloring, writing, throwing, eating, etc. The next foundational skill is motor planning. Motor planning is the key to executing movement. Why is motor planning important? It allows us to know, remember, and perform small steps that make particular movements or tasks happen. Think about skills your child is learning while at home. I'm going to use the example of learning how to put toothpaste on a toothbrush. We take for granted the many steps and actions that are required to get the paste on the brush. Twisting the cap while holding the tube with the other hand, holding the toothbrush, while squeezing and controlling the amount of force on the tube to get the just right amount of toothpaste on the bristles. Also, making sure the paste gets on that toothbrush. Whew, that is a lot going on with one simple task. I'm guessing that many of your children had more paste in the sink or on the floor or on their clothes than on the toothbrush when they were learning. This is just one example of how our children are encountering many tasks on a daily basis that require practice and learning. Handwriting is another example of a multi-system task that is gradual, initially unfamiliar, and requiring a great deal of practice to make progress and move towards automaticity, which is doing without thinking. Visual motor coordination. Visual motor coordination is the ability to interpret information and respond with motor action. Visual motor integration involves effective and efficient communication between the eyes and the hands so that you are able to draw or write what you see. Effective coordination of the visual and motor system can only happen when the two foundations are well established. Children need good visual motor integration to be able to copy basic shapes, such as diagonal lines, circles, squares, triangles, and intersecting lines, before they are able to learn how to form their letters correctly. Are deficits related to visual acuity? Not necessarily. Visual acuity and visual perception may be intact, and the breakdown in performance may be motor related. In the next slides, we will focus on the main components of hand skills. These skills are integral pieces that help your child develop the fine motor skills and wrist stability, hand and finger strength, hand separation, in-hand manipulation, and sensation to write. Wrist stability. The wrist is the foundation from which the fingers work. Neutral or slightly extended position for the small hand muscles to work efficiently. We have more control when writing and drawing when our wrist is stabilized on the writing surface. Proper wrist position influences the position of fingers and the ability of the fingers to move in fine and refined movements. Finger and hand strength. Finger and hand strength are needed to maintain endurance during writing and coloring, while holding writing utensil and applying appropriate pressure on the paper, and writing, drawing, and coloring, or coloring for the duration of an expected task. In the absence of endurance, holding writing utensils effectively, applying pressure on the paper, the child may fatigue easily or have to adjust their grasp frequently. Hand separation. The hand is designed to work as two separate units. So, like this. The more specialized thumb side and the ulnar side, which is the pinky and ring fingers. There are more muscles in the thumb side, which allows it to be more specialized and perform refined movements. When the ring and pinky fingers are stabilized against the palm, they provide stability. Importance of hand separation translates to being able to grasp pencils, scissors, tools effectively and efficiently. Without hand separation, you lose stability and control. In-hand manipulation involves the small, precise muscles of the hand that are designed to perform refined tasks. In-hand manipulation allows for effective handling of small objects, tools, and writing utensils. The hand muscles that allow for in-hand manipulation are called intrinsic hand muscles. In-hand manipulation requires maturation of the tactile system and coordination of the movement of the fingers and thumbs. This is why you see gradual improvement and development in your child's writing. Later in this presentation, we will be examining the developmental progression of handwriting. This next group of slides will review the developmental progression of fine motor skills that support handwriting. You will also see the stages of drawing and pre-writing strokes that are important stepping stones for a student's acquisition of writing. OT support the foundational fine motor skills that address the ability for a student to have a developmentally appropriate pencil grasp and fine motor movements. This slide provides typical progression of a pencil grasp. Here are examples of mature pencil grasps that may support handwriting. Here's an example of a kindergarten friend who has been working on developing fine motor and stability skills that support his drawing and writing in kindergarten. Drawing is an important skill for children to learn because it helps students develop the use of their eyes and their hands together, which is called eye-hand coordination. It also develops overall fine motor skills and develops visual spatial and visual perceptual skills such as size and relationship concepts, position of objects, and more. It also develops a child's attention to task, body awareness, in-hand manipulation skills, and creativity. Additionally, drawing helps children to develop their cognitive, verbal, and written skills, as drawing is a skill that comes before the process of writing. Drawing is a way for young children to express their thoughts and ideas using a combination of lines and curves to convey their message. As a child moves through the developmental stages of writing, she will also practice controlled movements while writing with the writing utensil in order to create shapes and figures. Writing readiness can be guided by the child's ability to form these pre-writing strokes. A child needs to master most of these pre-writing strokes before they are ready to learn to write. Each of these shapes is a part of the letters of the alphabet. Before a child learns to write the upper and lowercase letters and numbers, it is also important to ensure he can recognize those letters and numbers in order to relate the process of writing to written communication. Research shows that handwriting is not a self-evident skill. It requires explicit instruction to master. Handwriting instruction provides consistency for letter formation, efficient motor patterns, common understanding of letter alignment, directionality, and explicit instructions on writing mechanics. If a student develops efficient patterns of writing, writing becomes effortless. Effortless writing breaks the frustration cycle. If a student persists with poor letter formation habits or inefficient grasps, writing can become laborious and affect a student's experience in school. Handwriting is a mastered skill when it becomes automatic, so a student can maintain focus and concentrate on the creative content of writing while generating legible print that is easy for others to read. Automaticity often does not occur until 4th or 5th grade. Take a look at this video. This student has recently mastered independent letter formation from memory. She is able to write lowercase letters upon request and without hesitation. She's not having to think at all about how she's moving her hand. Now that we have a general understanding of a student's developmental progression through acquiring the skills of handwriting, let's look at how this translates to grade level expectations using the North Carolina Standard Course of Study or North Carolina Extended Standards. Your child's teacher provides handwriting instruction as part of the English Language Arts curriculum. What are the grade level handwriting expectations? Based on the North Carolina Standard Course of Study, students are learning how to write letters in kindergarten. However, the expectation of legibility is at the end of 1st grade. This means that during the school day, your child's teacher is providing handwriting instruction and support. If there are breakdowns in any foundational skills we reviewed in the previous slides, the teacher can work with the student to provide the initial support. If the student continues to experience difficulties in the school OT can be a resource for the teacher. How can I help my child? So we have just covered a great deal of information from the physical to the cognitive to the developmental stages of handwriting. If I was watching this presentation and I had concerns about my child's handwriting, I would want to know how to support my child. In these next 4 slides, we will review a compilation of resources that you can use if you would like to further investigate the foundational skills that support handwriting. Additionally, there are play-based activities included in each of these folders. Please remember, your teacher is your first resource in determining if additional support is needed with the process of handwriting. In this link on the slide, it provides information on fine motor skills and play-based activities you can use to further develop your child's fine motor skills. In this folder, you will find handouts that further explain fine motor skills, in-hand manipulation, separation of the hand, and play-based activities to further develop your child's fine motor skills. The link on this slide provides general information about handedness. The link on this slide provides resources and strategies for developmental drawing expectations. Sometimes there are pieces of adaptive equipment that assist a student's acquisition of writing. There are there are different types of adaptive equipment which may help your child compensate for difficulties with the different foundational skills. Examples may include pencil grips to promote a mature pencil grasp or an increased diameter of the pencil, weighted pencils, slant boards for wrists and forearm positioning, adapted pencils for grasp, adapted paper for letter alignment, letter strips for visual examples. If you believe your child may benefit from a simple adapted equipment, talk with your teacher or your OT to ensure the equipment is supporting the developmental appropriate access to the writing skills. Thank you so much for your time and attention this evening. Now, here's Linda from the Family and Community Connections team.
Thank you so much, Sue, for that wonderfully informative presentation. We would like to hear from you now, parents. We'd like a little feedback. So please don't leave. We're going to give you 2 minutes to fill out a feedback form. We're going to drop that feedback form in the chat. So Annie, if you could do that for us. And if you can click on that and just take a few minutes to fill out give us some answers. This will help us design future presentations so that they best meet your needs. So it's really important to take the time out. So if we could start the timer for 2 minutes. Finish early, please remain in the session so we can provide you with the resources that we discussed in the presentation.
The form that was posted is an editable form. You can complete it. The form is in edit mode, so you can't complete it.
So when you will receive an email after the presentation, and there will be a feedback form included in the email as well. So if you could complete it, then we'd appreciate that. Sorry about that. So we're just going to move forward. So this was the last of our 2022 Spring into Action parent sessions. But if you missed one of the sessions that you see listed here and you're still interested in that, please know that they are recorded and they will be placed on the website. So please check back on the special education website for updates. Please check regularly. So we hope you found this session informative and helpful as you prepare your child as they're working on their handwriting skills. If you have questions about something that you heard tonight or about special education services in general, or perhaps we didn't answer one of the questions that you provided during the registration, please feel free, if any of that is the case, please feel free to contact Family and Community Connections using the information on the slide you see in front of you. No question is too big or too small. We answer them all. Yes, I just made that up. If we can move forward. Thank you. So earlier in the presentation, we discussed a resource page. So in front of you, you see the QR codes that are linked to the folders that Sue discussed during her presentation. So the QR codes will be available until 6:45. So at this time, again, we want to thank you so much for being here and for viewing tonight's presentation, and we wish you all a wonderful evening.